Yes, yeah.
Okay. So, some of my thoughts were just on Africa and just how incredible they were in, with the resources that they had, that they were able to progress so much. Like within their own sphere of progression, they had, well, they'd done so much better than everyone else, even though they are still way poorer than we are.
I really enjoyed how he mapped it out and then had that diagram so that you could see the actual progress. Because I don't think it would be as impressive unless you could actually see the progress and see that other countries on the same level, though they were a few years ahead, they weren't much ahead in health or technology. It was really just that graph that pointed out that they're not much more special than Africa.
I think what really surprised me is when he did like the child mortality and just kind of the health overall. Like we've maintained a very good like economy and we're very wealthy, but as far as healthcare goes, we're pretty low on the scale, which I don't know, kind of made me think a little bit. I thought that was interesting.
I thought it was cool how I don't know, we focus a lot on like the world's problems and like how many things can be improved, and there are a lot of things that can be improved. But I thought it was cool how throughout the years, like everyone's improved, everyone's
Yeah.
made progress, and we're still like headed that way. We're not like, you know.
That's true. It's cool to see how they all correlate. Like all of us are moving along together. Some are just a little bit behind, but we're all moving along together as technology increases, as our knowledge increases, as our ability to communicate with other like nations and stuff. We're all moving along together in our own way.
And going along with it, I liked at the beginning where he showed that over time, as we continue, we'll be able to live longer and be able to control, population. And as you saw, the entire world will eventually get to this really good place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And sword swallowing was a good added part.
It was a good finale.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also thought it was interesting, like his chart of like the means and the goal, because I think sometimes we can confuse those two. Like, there's a lot of emphasis on like, oh, human rights and like equality between men and women, and a lot of times there's emphasis on that in like other countries where it's really bad. But what people don't see is that's like the goal, and there's means to get there, and the means should be focused on so we can reach the goal.
I thought it was kind of like what you said, how the means are very different from the goal. I never thought that, I guess, in a standpoint of the country, that the culture would have been a major goal, and also human rights. Like coming from America, you don't think of that as a major goal that you want to establish for your country. But I thought that was unique that most countries, that's their most important goal.
I think it's cool to see how like America, who basically welcomes all cultures to come, so that we can like feed off of one another. That is one of the big reasons why we're so successful, is because we combine so many cultures. We're the melting pot. So it's cool to see how that correlation happens when we put so much emphasis on culture, and because we do have so much culture here. That's why we're so successful.
No, I think it's definitely a really, good thing about America. But I think what he was trying to point out with that is that I think a lot of our success, especially as Americans, comes from economic development and economic growth. Because as we saw, we kind of were falling behind as far as like health and all these other things, but we had a really good economy, and that's where a lot of our success comes from. And it was interesting to see that that's not a goal. Like he put a big fat zero right in the center, and when really that's what I think everyone needs to be focusing. As he was pointing out, like that's how they're going to develop. That's how they're going to be able to create a society where they can have equal rights and they can develop a better education and all that. So
I thought it was interesting what you said, Jenny. It kind of made me think of like our discussion last week, or not last week, earlier this week, sorry, about world systems, because it talks about how we talked about how like all of like especially the semi-peripheral countries, like they want to be more like the core countries, and a lot of times people from like the semi-peripheral countries and the peripheral countries will want to come to the core countries because they'll have professional skills or they've seen like the success that we've had. So that's why we have so much like immigration here, and everyone wants to live like the American dream. And I think because of that, kind of like what you were saying, like we have all these different sources to pull from. Like maybe we're not the best in healthcare, but there's other countries that are really good in healthcare, and there are professionals that want to come here because of our economy. So like their skills can be more rewarded economically, I guess.